don't deserve it, but actually I do. This is the Chicago Vintage Show. We are coming to you. We record the show at the Outer Space in Berwyn, thanks to Aaron, the fine owner and operator of the joint. Oh yeah. This is a little piece of the program that I like to call Ken's Corner, when you find out just what a psychopath I am when it comes to old vintage stuff. Old vintage stuff. There's a double entendre for you. Many, many years ago, I'm gonna let the cat out of the bag. I was born in the 60s and raised in the 1970s. And for those who were there and those of you who weren't there, the 70s were rough, man. I remember it plain as day, and I remember going to a little movie in 1974. A picture came out starring Sylvester Stallone, Perry King, and Henry Winkler, a picture called The Lords of Flatbush. And it was a movie that was all about four guys growing up in the Flatbush district in New York in the late 50s. And it was all Finmobiles and greased hair and leather jackets. And I fell in love with the leather jacket immediately. I said, I got to get me one of these jackets. And it was a very, very long time. First thing that my mother did was, my mother was, number one, a saint, and number two, really good with a sewing machine. And she actually made me a jacket out of black Naugahyde. She nearly destroyed her sewing machine in the process, but she made me this jacket with a zipper and a collar, and I walked around in junior high like I was really awesome, cool. But then I got to high school. And my mom and I sat down and I said, Mom, I think I need a winter coat. And she said, well, all right, there's this nice jacket that we both agreed on that was in the Montgomery Ward's catalog. And my mom said, okay, you can go ahead and you can get this jacket. And this was the jacket that I got. Oh yeah. Come back, Jill, come back. This was the very first black leather motorcycle jacket that I ever got. And I remember going to the Montgomery Ward's outlet store, and Karina Klett, who was one of my classmates, was working behind the counter, and she was the one that handed me the box, and I took that thing and I wore it, and every day between classes I would go back to my locker and I would open my locker, and my locker smelled like fresh black leather, and it was the best thing in the world. I wore this jacket for 10, 15 years, I don't know, and then I said to myself, you know what? I got to spend me some real money, because I had heard that there were these things called Schott Brothers Perfecto jackets that you bought at real motorcycle stores. And I started saving up my money and saving up my money and saving up my money. And then I got a check for a couple of $100 from my parents, and I went, hot ziggity zack, I can buy the real thing. I went to, I think it was Leo's Custom Leathers on Clark Street, right across from the Century Plaza, and I bought this thing. And this was the greatest leather jacket I could have ever imagined in my entire life. Had it customized a little bit, had an extra belt loop installed just to make it nice and tight and snug. Wore this thing for years and years. And then I started getting this crazy idea, started seeing guys. I was actually at a heavy metal show at the Thirsty Whale. And I saw a guy wearing a black leather motorcycle jacket, and on the back of it, he had a big airbrush painting of Michael Monroe, the lead singer from Hanoi Rocks. And I said, I got to get me a painted jacket, and it took me a while to make it happen, and I got this bad boy in more ways than one. Pardon me while I put my hands on my blessed wife. This is my wife, Mary.
So, who painted that jacket, Ken?
This jacket was painted by the man, the myth, the legend, Jimmy Sutton. Wow. From the Moondogs, from the Four Charms, from the Mighty Blue Kings, now partner in crime with Mr. J.D. McPherson. You can see there's a little Sutton logo. There's a little autograph on there somewhere. He also did, show him what's on the right arm. There's a Earl Carter from the Heebie-Jeebies would love this Betty Page. So that was my first painted jacket. Then I said, I was sitting down one time with my friends Tom and Lisa, Tom Seraphin. We were watching the Jerry Lewis telethon one Labor Day weekend. And Tom and I were sitting there, and Tom said, you know, that Jerry Lewis cartoon logo would look great on the back of a motorcycle jacket. And so was born. Thank you, dear heart. Show him the blessed man himself right there on the back. You know you're super tough when you've got the king of comedy on the back of your leather jacket. This was a second creation from Jimmy Sutton, J.D. McPherson's partner in crime. So then I got even nuttier, and I started working on a jacket and painted it myself as modeled by Ari from the Heebie-Jeebies. Show him that logo on the back. Show him that full logo. And if you'll notice, you can barely make them out. Bunny Carlos signed it. Tom Peterson signed it. On the front here, that's actually Robin Zander's signature. And on the right arm, the man himself with his own cartoon, the greatest guitar player in the world, Mr. Rick Nielsen. These were my guys.
And our friends.
Exactly. The handcuffs are on there. Robin Zander actually wore this jacket on stage at a show at the Hard Rock Cafe in downtown Chicago. And at one point during the show, he looked over at Rick, and he looked at me in the audience, and he made a gesture as if to say, I'm going to take this jacket off and throw it into the crowd. That didn't happen. Well, then, oddly enough, a couple of years ago, I'm at a thrift store. And I see a jacket, and it doesn't look like much, but the fact that it was a $15 jacket, it's made by a company called Hot Leathers, and I can't tell you how many people have stopped me on the streets and said, man, that is the coolest jacket in the world. This is the one that I wear all the time now, even with this pantheon of jackets. What am I, crazy? I'm living the good life, and so are you, because you're watching the Chicago Vintage Show right here, right now. Thank you, dude. My gals. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.